Apparently, The Perks of Being a Wallflower was banned for glorification of drugs and for explicit sexual content. I think yes, but at the same time, I don't think so. I'm like in the middle because if you see it from a young person perspective, and I don't know, let's say you're like 15, 16, and you get to read this book and you see all the fun and how they portray like all the sexual content and all this drug use and partying and everything that the book's banned for, then you could start glorifying it. And you're like, oh, well, this sounds fun. Like, why not experiment with it? Which we all go through that phase where we're like curious about life, but I think we shouldn't really be reading about literal glorification of these things. On the other hand, I feel like once you get to a certain age and you get to read these things, you get to understand why they wrote it in the first place. Because, like I said, we all go through that stage where we're curious about life and we might get to experiment with like drugs and alcohol and partying and all these stuff. Like it's just a teenage thing. And it depends on the person, obviously, but it's part of growing up. And even if we're not really involved in this like scene, we can still get involved through friends, through family, through, I don't know, school, work. Like, you never know when you're actually going to encounter all these situations. And to a certain degree, the book and the movie, they both portrayed real life just how it is, I feel. When you're that young and you're experimenting and you're doing all these things and you're excited about it and you don't quite understand what you're doing wrong. To you, it's just fun. To a regular person, it's just like, oh, I'm having fun, I'm partying, I'm with my friends, like exciting. The adrenaline is rushing, but there is an undertone of something that you shouldn't be doing. So I feel like there's valid reasons and there's things that just aren't valid. I don't think it should be banned. I think it should definitely have like an age limit to read it, which I know that happened in certain states. Like they put it, I think 18 and up. But I don't think it should be banned. Definitely not, because like I said, it's a portrayal of how life goes sometimes. And when you do go through these kind of things, you might get stuck. Like, let's talk about the main character, right? What's his name? Charlie? He doesn't quite understand why he's going through all these things. And then he like starts to realize and remember, and he starts remembering what happened to him when he was a kid. And I feel like maybe someone through reading the book or watching the movie could relate to that and kind of understand why everything happened the way it did, which I feel like that's the point of the movie, to like show a different side of why people do the things they do, especially when they're growing up, like in the teenage stage. I wouldn't say there are like benefits. I just think it's a way for parents to control what kind of information their kids have access to, which from a parent viewpoint might not seem as bad, but then again, kids do whatever they want. Like, you can't control someone, yet they still go to school, they still do other things, they have friends, they get to see other things in life that you might not want them to see. So kind of like banning a book won't stop your kid from seeing homosexual content. Like, people kiss in the streets and they don't care if your kid's there. People go to parties and they see drugs there. People, I don't know, they experiment with their life, and I don't think parents realize that a book is a book and a movie is a movie, and ultimately your kid's gonna see that somehow, some way. They're gonna grow up. I do think that's the only benefit, I'd say, like the control of parental control, I'd say. Yeah, just kind of like keeping your kid away from things that you might not want them to see, or you might not want them to experiment before a certain age. That is the alienation of people. So, like I said before, parents want to shelter their kids, keep them away from certain things that might or might not happen in their lives. But if you keep them away from those things so badly, and then they go out to the real world, you know, they move out, they go to college, they, I don't know, change environment, they can encounter these kind of scenarios and judge them really hard, or not know what to do when they're in a situation where they need guidance, which they probably didn't receive at home because they were alienated from it. I don't think there's a valid reason to ban books. I do think there are valid reasons to put an age restriction in a book, because a younger reader could get really impressed by what he reads, or could kind of like want to follow what the book says or the book does. But I still don't think banning it is a good idea. It's just censorship. It's the, I don't know, they're taking your liberty away, reading whatever you want, or learning whatever you want to learn. Yeah.